This week on Rockstar Superhero. Today on Rockstar Superhero, we choose to feature something very different from our past interviews. Lately, we felt compelled to do more for the people around us, as well as the entertainment industry at large. What came to mind was to ask some of the musical artists we know to join us in a public forum, having panel discussions on topics that every artist and every person, for that matter, deals with on an almost daily basis. Our topic today: mental health, illness, and ultimately the journey towards well-being. I hope you enjoy this very special conversation with some of the most transparent influencers in the music business as we journey together. This is our first attempt at a deep dive into the maelstrom of mental illness. This is The Artist's Dilemma on Rockstar Superhero. At this time, I'd like to introduce everyone, starting with Grammy-nominated music educator Chris Hathcock of the Reticent. Chris will act as a sort of a guide with me today, as this is a huge part of his life and study work, and he'll help keep me on task. And then I'd like to introduce our panel, beginning with Davidavi Dolev. You might see on the screen here as Vidi.
Hey, guys.
As the singer of Subterranean Masquerade, good friend of mine. J.R. Bareis of Love and Death. Hey, J.R.
Hello.
Jon Sinfield of Memorist.
That's right.
Yeah. Oliver Welzen-James of Sunfall.
What's up?
Yeah. Nathan Biddles of InRetrospect.
All right.
Yeah. Dany Soucy of Spei.
Salut tout le monde.
And John Asher from Asher Media.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, so really, thank you all for being here today, guys. It's a huge honor. I think it's smart to just jump right in. We've got people watching, and this is really important. So as we start, if I may ask, who's been touched by a suicide in their immediate circle? Raise your hand.
Yep.
What about an overdose, guys?
Yep.
Okay. So if I can jump off the cliff, may I ask who also suffers from depressive episodes like me? Yep. Okay. Well, I'm in your camp on all three, and that response should say something, right? I mean, we are surrounded by this, and not to be political, but to me, this is the modern pandemic. And I thought it would be a great opener to start with Vidi, one of my best buddies, and he's been very, very open online about his struggles with bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
And I have a question for you, Vidi, which is
Go
this.
for it.
You betcha, buddy. Music has long been a facility through which artists and listeners can express themselves and cope with destructive emotional turmoil. So how does music affect your mental health as a performer?
As a performer?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it depends if I'm up or down, actually.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, before I answer, I just want to say thank you for having me. The last time we talked actually opened up my realization that I want to speak more about it with people. So thanks for that.
Oh, you're welcome, buddy. You're welcome.
And it's very nice to meet all of you guys here. And, well, what happens to me in my manic episodes is that I can't stop writing, or that I can't stop creating. And then what happens to me when I'm with people is that after my it's in English, so sorry, my main language is Hebrew. After I was hospitalized in a mental health hospital a few years back, I was there for about a year and a half in some sort of a daycare. I wasn't staying the nights, but the main objective of this was to kind of train me how to act normal next to people, and how to control my impulses, or how to use the episode that I'm going through, how to use it for my benefit and not just feel guilt about it. And so what happens to me is that a lot of times the adrenaline during shows goes so high that I can't shut my brain down afterwards at all. So this is some sort of a gateway for me for some manic or hypomanic, actually, like if I need to be more precise about what I'm doing. It just doesn't shut off. It can start small episodes. So if I have one show a week, it goes like this, and then I get here and I can't go down. And when it drops so fast and so like anticlimax that I have to collect myself again. But then there's another show, and then I can't take a balance. During tours, I don't sleep. I sleep in the mornings, because I can't sleep. I'm in my bunk bed and I can't do anything about it. But one thing, going back to the hospital, is that learning how to behave next to people when I'm going through something, on one hand, made me hide a lot of things. But on the other hand, it really helped me understand better how to communicate with other people in the audience. Everybody comes with energy, everybody comes with pain, everybody comes with their own issues. So I try to make it more about connection when I feel ill, and about curing each other without really speaking about it. And this is how music, for me, cures things during performance. Sorry for the long answer, guys.
No, I don't think you should apologize.
Not at all.
You know, it's interesting. I've noticed after shows in the past, I'm not playing out anymore, but I used to have what I called tired wired episodes, right? After a show, I would be so lit up. John's nodding. So I think we agree that I'd be so lit up I couldn't sleep. And it wasn't just the adrenaline, but obviously it's a huge component, but it felt to me like there was something being added into it. And I could never really figure it out. But of course, as I stopped playing, as I slowed down, those episodes went away. And now I just discovered, I have a bad Coca-Cola addiction. Right? Just keep it out of your head. But Chris, as Vidi spoke, what are some takeaways you might have? I mean, obviously, as somebody who's very studied on this subject, is very important to you. I mean, you do a lot of work with the public. What are your thoughts on what Vidi said, and how can we learn from his experience?
Well, I think his experience is shared by many. Even those that aren't experiencing the manic episodes of bipolar. I think that there's a lot to unpack there that we could all recognize. There are three types of coping that we tend to do with music. One is what we might call emotion-oriented coping. Right. And so that's like I'm listening to music to gain a positive emotion. I'm trying to stabilize my emotion. I'm trying to feel better through the music. Right. Then you have like problem-oriented coping. And this is where you're using the music to reflect on things, to work things out, to attain a different level of thinking, whatever, all those kinds of things. And then you have avoidance or disengagement coping, which is I'm listening to music to avoid my own problems or whatever, what I mean? And when we're feeling more productive, or maybe in manic spaces or anything like that, a lot of times we kind of get into that problem-oriented coping sphere where music becomes an outlet, a reflective tool, something that kind of becomes a perpetual motion machine for us. The research would sort of suggest that those that are using music more for the disengagement or the avoidance coping skills, where those are people that are more in that depression side of things. I'm trying to just get away. I'm trying to escape, or what have you. Outside of all that, you have, what we might call musical identities. When we're all adolescents, I mean, think about it. Everybody here, we start to identify with music probably at a young age. We probably saw bits of ourselves in this music. We begin to identify ourselves with certain genres, certain artists, certain whatever, and that that field may have narrowed or expanded as we grew older. But a lot of that identity kind of comes from an emotional sense of this person. I identify with what this person's feeling, what they're saying, what they're going through, all that kind of stuff. That's a lot of times what we identify with. I don't know that there are many people that, listen to a song about somebody who's got, who's filthy rich and has women on each arm and driving around in fancy Cadillacs, and just, man, I identify with that a lot because I know exactly how that feels. However, we hear somebody say, something about heartbreak or something about how I don't think I'll ever be the same after this event, whatever it might be. We see ourselves in that. We how many times have we heard somebody say, an artist, wrote that song for me, or they're saying something like that. I would be willing to wager that all of us here that are performers or artists, we've had an interaction with somebody where they've said, that, you said something I was trying to say, or you made a sound that captured something within me. And I think not to I can get too far off on a tangent. I think you actually need to be the one to reel me in back. But the interesting thing about all this is that music, if we actually think about it, music itself it's an extension of human expression, in that it's taking our ability to express through sound further than we're capable. Think about it. Your melody mirrors how we speak. We do not speak in monotone. Everything does not sound. We don't talk that way. We have inflections, we have peaks, we have valleys. And so when we sing or when we listen to a melody, whatever it might be, whether it's aggressive death metal, whether it's beautiful, classical music or whatever, there's rise and fall to it. There's dynamic to it. There's different emphasis on different syllables and all that kind of stuff. We do all these things to express ourselves, and music is taking that ability to express and going further. It's the oldest art form we have. It's the old, we begin making rhythms and singing and all this kind of stuff before we can even hold a pencil to draw or this, that, the other thing. We're just making these sounds and expressing ourselves through sounds and recognizing others through sound. This is as primal gets. And that's why we can hear, think about how magical it is. I walk into a venue, whether it's a concert hall or a dive bar, and I see you perform or I listen to you perform, and I don't know you, I know nothing about you, but you might make a sound with your guitar, with your voice or something like that, even if I don't know what you're saying. And it might trigger some memory in me. It might trigger something within me that causes me to have this emotional reaction. It's about as close as magic as we can get. I can just, through vibrations, I can affect your emotions. I could trigger memories in your head. I could take you back to some place you forgot about just through sound. Yeah. So it really is kind of a magical thing. And that's the reason why this mental health stuff is so connected to it, because it's so primal within us. So all those coping mechanisms we use it for, whether it's, our identity, problem-oriented, emotion-oriented, avoidance behavior, any of those kinds of things, I think music is intimately tied to mental health and mental well-being. Yeah.
It explains too why certain bands have such reach and power, right? So whether we're talking about Slipknot as an example, right? There's a lot of energy, positive and negative, in the audience and on the stage. You know what I mean? People want to be in a group dynamic because they want to know other people are feeling what they're feeling, right? And yet, I don't know about any of the guys here on the panel today, and I don't want to keep injecting myself into this conversation, but I personally run away. when things are tough. I'm a total pansy. You know what I mean? I say I need the love. I recognize I need the love, but usually I just sit down and pray, as an example, because I don't want to bring people into my sphere, mostly because of some weird narcissistic thing that says, oh, shouldn't they see I'm suffering? Right? Don't they care enough about me that they should see it like silently? They should recognize it in me, and they should ask me because they love me, versus me saying, hey, I need some love and attention right now because I'm struggling. You know, what do you think about that, Dany?
That's heavy. I mean, I'm kind of, as for me, I can say never, but I rarely expose myself as how I feel inside. I mean, most of the time I'm the clown and the people who was looking to get everyone around me smiling. So if I see someone who don't feel, I'll do anything I can to make him feel better. So as for me, it's kind of hard. I don't know. It's rare. It's really rare for me to explode, to express what I feel. I keep most of the thing inside of me, but I mean, I don't keep everything inside, because when I reach a certain point, I get into my car or I put an earphone on my ears, and I'll start listening music from any bands, and all the feelings I keep inside will just will get out of me progressively by the music. That's the way I find for me to make it through all the difficult stuff in my life. Sorry, I struggle to find my words a little, and after everything that Chris said is so true. I mean, I could listen to him for many hours and analyze what he's saying, and put things on me to see if he's right. And just for what he said, I think he was right on spot. And I don't know what I can say more. I mean, it's hard. It's a hard subject.
It is.
It is. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Look, I want to say this again, and I'm going to be saying this a lot today, but I honor everyone here. I realize some of us here aren't necessarily struggling with any mental illness or, any sort of disease, if you will. But, it's tough. It's tough to talk about this. I mean, obviously there's a huge stigma around it. People misunderstand what mental health is. Many people, I used to be this person who saw it as a sign of weakness, almost pathetic weakness. I used to think, as I was younger, that there's no way anybody should be sad. That's just, that's quitting. That's quitting. But I didn't see it as a physiological thing. I saw it as maybe a spiritual thing even. But,
But if you've never experienced it, you can't
Correct.
know. That's
Correct.
kind of the point. The reason the stigma exists, the reason it persists, is because you don't know what that feels like. Because, if I say, like, when I describe my disorder as I'm inoculated against joy, it's like someone gave me a shot and I can't feel happiness. I can recognize I should enjoy this. I should like this. This should make me feel better. And it doesn't. And it's a frustrating thing, and it makes you unpleasant to be around. It's all sorts of things. And, if the mistake is that people say, well, I've been divorced, or I've lost a job, or I lost a pet, or I had this thing happen to me. And that's an event. That's a thing. And it's a tragedy. But that's the thing. On the other side, depression at its worst is this mute, pallid blankness. It's empty. It's hollow. It's not this, I'm sitting in my room crying, woe is me. Oh, why? It's this, I don't want to move. I'm lying in bed. I don't even, what is the point? That's what depression feels like. It's not intense sadness with the volume turned all the way up. it's very, very different, and it's much more blank than that. But it's so hard for people to conceive of until they experience it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's part of the disconnect here. It's as if we're trying to describe to a blind person the concept of red.
Yeah,
They can understand. Okay, well, there it is. You know, there are things as colors, light spectrum, reflections. Okay, I can understand all the technical stuff, but their concept of red is never going to be what my concept of red is. And it's not that they're bad, they're wrong, they're this. It's just this thing of they're not able to understand without this sense. We just depend on our eyes too much to understand that color.
Yeah.
With these disorders, with these things, whether it's major depressive disorder like I have, like bipolar, you know, whatever, you have to have experienced it to even kind of recognize it. But that, by the way, is why I'm glad that talks like this happen, because we have to hide so much, and we have to make sure that we don't, you know, I have to, like, I'm an educator by day. I can't, you know, go around saying, oh, by the way, I have all this stuff going on with me.
Yeah.
Because there's a stigma that will go along with that. And it's again because people don't quite understand.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're in the minority, Rob, for you know, having that previous view. But that's exactly why conversations like this have to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will say this, John, I want to get to you because I can see you nodding a lot, and definitely Chris hit you pretty square in the gut on that response. But yeah, I grew up in a family that saw anything like that as weakness. And I'm not saying my parents or, you know, my extended family pushed a specific sort of almost like racist against, you know, mental illness, but you know, an agenda against those sorts of things. I just was always told that, you know, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, right? If you fall down, you rub dirt on it. You know what I mean? Whatever you do, you get up and you go forward. And I think we all hear that through our childhood, right? We hear get up and go. It's not that bad. But when your brain isn't making the right fluids, and you know, combined with the experiences, you know, that we all encounter, they get ramped up 1,000%. You know, I mean, I have nowhere to go with this, but I appreciate you responding that way, Chris. John, I could tell you wanted to kind of jump in there with Chris. What's your takeaway from that?
I mean, a lot of what Chris, you said, and Dany and Vidi, you kind of said previously really resonated with me. And I mean, let's be honest, we live or we exist as we are in a generation is kind of like the movement between two generations, right? So Rob, you said you that generation while you fall down, you rub dirt on it. That was kind of like my grandparents' generation. Yeah, they didn't really see. Thank you. You know why you would see that as kind of a problem, like it was just weakness then, right? You know, you're crying. Well, that's because you're weak. When actually this kind of whole idea of how we exist within ourselves, right? We exist within our own minds, which is what our mental health is, and our comfort with ourselves. We're slaves to perception, right? So people can perceive a broken arm. You can see a broken arm, you can see melanoma, whatever else, and you can identify a treatment route for that. But someone suffering from crippling anxiety or depression or anything that doesn't necessarily exhibit any physical symptoms, right? I mean, yeah, so you don't want to talk to people. You lock yourself in your room. You're just antisocial. That's the way it becomes, but it is perceived by people around you.
Right.
When actually that's not the case at all. Really, you want someone to help you, but you just don't know how to ask for that help. Or you're in such a pit of despair that the only way you can deal with it is to not talk to anyone. Yeah. And to kind of return back to a comment someone made earlier, I can't remember who it was. Sorry, guys. But actually, Rob, I think it was you. In terms of talking about these problems, like, we don't want to burden people, right? And specifically as musicians, we're empaths generally. And the idea of sharing your problems with someone else is almost like, it's my problem. I don't want to have to put that upon you.
Right.
And I don't want to drag you into my misery. I don't want to drag you into the way I'm feeling. I'm going to kind of deal with this on my own. And we're in a unique position as musicians. We're both kind of creators and consumers, of music. So in terms of the strategies for or dealing with the way we're feeling, I can sit down and I can put my headphones in, I can listen to a This Will Destroy You album, and I can disappear for 2 hours. That will really do wonderful things for me and my mental health. But equally, I can sit down with a pad and a pen and I can write everything that I'm feeling in metaphor, and I can share what I'm feeling without dragging anyone into the actual experiences that I've had or the way I'm feeling in that moment. So the reason I wanted to be a part of this is it's a unique conversation for us to have as musicians. Yeah, we can listen to music, and that can be a way in which we deal with our mental health. But also, as creators, you can kind of transmit it without burdening people. I think that's the way I like to view what I'm able to do. Is I can use it as a healing process, but I don't have to drag down the people I love with me. Yeah,
that's great stuff, man. Thank you for that, Jon. That's powerful and poignant. JR, I wanted to ask you something. I know, of course, you have had a lot of experience in the last 10 years working in Love and Death, and then occasionally subbing for Monkey and Korn, which has been a big thing for you. What's it like in regards to dealing with the backstage and the audience response? Because Korn to me seems to draw, and then by proxy, I imagine Love and Death seems to draw people who are seeking. They're seeking to understand their place in the world. They're seeking to understand God. They're seeking to get over something or share their pain with somebody else. The catharsis in that crowd is probably significant. What's your experience been like in that bigger arena? What's that feel like?
It's pretty crazy. I mean, by the way, before I talk, thank you for having me, by the way.
Thank you.
I appreciate
awesome.
it. But yeah, being in that spot, filling in for Monkey or Head or whatever, it's a really crazy thing because I feel like those guys are kind of irreplaceable. You replace one person and it's like not the same, so it's like big shoes kind of thing. But as far as like audience response and stuff, I mean, you're right. What those people are searching for, and through like Jonathan's lyrics, like, man, he is so relatable for a lot of people, and I think that's why they've been so successful, is because he's been willing to put himself out there and put it all on the table. And I mean, I think people really respect that, and they're thankful for that because they have something to relate to and help them through what they're going through themselves. So for me to jump in and like people to be really welcoming for when I have filled in and stuff has been amazing. And also those guys in general are some of the nicest dudes you'll ever meet in your life. And they just love to do what they do. And then also, with Love and Death, like you said, like we tried to, as far as like our lyrics and what we're talking about, is obviously struggles that we go through, and trying to relate with everyone. And I think too, like the twist on it is also like that there's hope, not just talk about it and that's it, try to put the fact that there is hope and there is a way out. And that's, for me personally, that's Christ, I'm a Christian. And so, for me, that's such a huge help in my life, knowing Christ and having a relationship with him. And, but besides that, like, I don't want to come off as like, right. Once you're saved, like everything's perfect, it's like, that's not how it is at all. God's not a genie in a bottle either, Right. So, I mean, besides that, like practical things, as far as, like for me, I'm a very, very introverted person. So like playing shows and meeting people is actually very draining for me. And I get a lot of anxiety from that. And so for me to recharge, like a lot of times I'm like a hermit, and I go like sit in my room for days after a tour, But yeah, I mean, as far as sorry, going off on a tangent, but as far as like, yeah, like, you know, what we talk about and stuff, like that's kind of like our base, you know, is just talking about what we go through, being real with people, but also talking about hope and that there is people around you that love you and that want to help you, and there's a way out. So hopefully that answers the question.
Well, that's great. I imagine that has to be very difficult, especially in the heavy music business, right? Where there's an assumption that you're either the opposite, where you're full on against everything, or you're trying to save everybody. In which case, that the burden of that has to kind of suck at times, because there's this sort of proclamation of a thing that a lot of people do not share with you. Right. The faith aspect of it. Yet they're seeking. Thank you so much for that comment. I appreciate that. Jon, I want to get to you because, one, you're here, and two, I thank you greatly for being in my life. What do you experience as a behind the scenes guy? I mean, you're an industry insider. What does it feel like on the backside of that stage?
I see a lot of things from the artists and for myself too. Where to start? For the depression thing, you don't see it much from the artists. It hit me hard 2 years ago. It was January 2020, just before all this COVID shit hit. And a band I was working for years ago that I love personally, working for and as a fan to their music, and then hear that the vocalist and the guitarist killed himself. It struck me so hard. I've never cried for one of my, I guess, clients or artists that I've worked for, but I cried so hard because I really, really liked them as a person and as a musician and everything. And then it made me think on stuff like, how did nobody see this? Right? It's such a silent killer. I've dealt with a bunch of friends, unfortunately, who've gone down the path of suicide and drug overdose and all that stuff. And it's still a question of why. How did nobody see this? Why wasn't anything reached out? Are they only expressing it through their music and we still didn't see it? You know what I mean? And it's just, it's, I guess, to go back to what Chris was saying and the others too, that it's just something that's still not talked about enough. I've questioned whether, I'll be honest, I was a depression denier in a sense. I always believed that, because I grew up with not the greatest childhood, and I was just taught you just get your fucking self back up, right, and just fucking push forward. I dealt with like abandonment issues without a father, and I've dealt with other abuse stuff, and I saw child psychiatry shit. But in the end, it was like, I learned as a personal thing, no one's going to fucking hold your hand. If you want something done, you do it yourself. So in the sense of depression and all that, when I saw it with friends or people talking about it, it was like, just grow the fuck up. No one's going to do anything for you. So push forward, break down the walls. That's just my personal thoughts. But then, during all this COVID stuff and dealing with the behind the scenes stress of dealing with artists, I'll be honest, dealing with artists is very stressful. Okay. Because you have egos and moods, and just the artist mentality sometimes is not up there with the business side at all. Yeah. And so it makes me reflect. I have days where, I'll be honest, I feel like the artist shit on me all day for the hard work I've done, and then it makes me a bit sad. I wouldn't say I'm depressed about it, where I can't get up and I don't want to move forward, but it makes me feel unworthy. You know what I mean? And I think the psychological part of that has worn me down over the years. I've been doing this now for 15 years, and I deal with it. Maybe I deal with it a lot, and it's been getting very frustrating. Where it makes you want to leave the whole music industry, because behind the scenes, I've always loved what the artists have been doing. I love the music. They're able to write intricate pieces of art, and express themselves. Yet some artists aren't people persons, right?
Sure.
Or they're so into themselves that they forget about the team around them at the label, or the booking agencies, or the public relations, or or their fellow musicians in their bands, that they become so jaded, and it gets sensitive. I get sensitive about that, and I think a lot of musicians too are sensitive in that sense too. You get butthurt, in a sense. So
absolutely.
That's how I see it for my mental health and for other mental healths in the industry. I have these chats with not the musicians themselves. I have these chats, you believe it or not, like managers and booking agents and label dudes. We all sit down and sometimes we have our bitch outs, man.
Yeah.
And that's how we deal with the mental health that we go through, because it's very stressful. Sometimes the demand results are, musicians do their part, they write their music, and in the end they want to be celebrated and they want people to pay attention to them. And behind the scenes, people who are trying to push that, it's goddamn hard. And I'll be honest, the music industry is a very abusive place on the mental health. Okay, it's just, it comes from all corners. But I don't know if I'm the only industry behind the scenes guys, but yeah, it's a day in, day out battle, dealing with the musicians and their demands and everybody else. Because in the end result, you musicians, it's I call it the Stewart effect for Mad TV. Right. It's look what I can do. 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 And some of them just go way too far with the look what I can do, and not be like, wow, this person loves me. Or, they don't notice what they got. They only notice what they haven't got.
Yeah.
And that personally to me has taken a toll on my mental health and how I work, because I'm not, it might go back to my abandonment issues, not having a parent or anything, but it hurts me. You know what I mean? That's my mental health and depression. It puts me in a slump sometimes.
But Jon, it's interesting that you said that, because to me it seems more like imposter syndrome at times. I don't know one musician, and I'm sure everybody here can agree with this, that there are times you feel like you're not qualified to be here. You're not qualified to be here, for example, or not qualified to be on that big stage, or not qualified because maybe your material isn't as good as it could have been. Right? There's always something the artist is seeking, some sort of fulfillment, right? I talk about this in every interview I do, which is the God-sized hole. We're seeking to fill that which is unquenchable, but we're rarely grateful for that 1% improvement in our life, or that 5% improvement, because we're always looking for the big fix. Right? The thing that saves us, whether it's, I just wish I had more money. I wish I had a better car. I wish I had a sexier wife, or I just wish I was freaking happy, and Oliver, I want to ask you, because you nodded a lot during Jon's moment there. And I don't necessarily have a question for you, but do you have a takeaway from what Jon was sharing? Because I could see it was touching you. You know what I mean? What it feels like to be in that spot where artists are maybe a little petulant, right? They're not appreciative. I mean, you just saw, maybe you didn't see, but Seth Detrick, who's the singer of Weston Supermame, of this shirt, by the way, he wrote, there are really annoying band members sometimes. I mean, touring is hard. You know what I mean? So I don't know. What's the general takeaway for you, Oliver? Do you want me to ask you a fancy question?
No, I can talk on everything. It's cool.
Okay, great.
it's one of those things where, be it's the situation where you're dealing with bands or, or dealing with life in general. It's so, I guess it's natural for us to be so present in what we're feeling. Like, we feel like crap right now. These people are treating me like crap right now and just make me feel this way and all that. Then it gets to a point, whether I'm just trying to get my words straight on this.
It's okay.
It gets to a point where it's a reoccurring, constant feeling. And for a long time, since probably I was about 13, I saw it as, how other people treated me, which was like crap, because everyone gets bullied during school and whatnot. Then over time, you just find yourself constantly down. Then it comes to a point where you realize, this is what's happening to me. This is why I'm feeling down. But then it's also as well just the awakening where you finally admit to yourself, actually, this is what's happening to me, from these other people. But also as well, this actually could be something underlying, because with Jon, you mentioned, childhood and whatnot as well. And it's one of those things where we don't realize it, but stuff like that affects us in ways we don't even see.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the point of not burdening people with your issues and stuff like that, it got to a point where I didn't want to burden anyone with it. So I kept it all inside, but then I realized me being so down, me trying to keep it away from other people was affecting me more. And I was dragging other people around me down. And I was like, me being how I am is burdening these people, so I need to do something about it. Because I don't want to burden them. And that's what led me to seeing a therapist for the first time. And once I started speaking to a therapist, they're really good at digging, in and pulling everything out. And it made me realize, these bullies been making me feel bad. This relationship ending made me feel, it's making me feel bad. But also as well, there is so much other stuff I hadn't even considered that was making me feel, really bad, in terms of depression. I've had it for a really long time, and it's a balancing act in terms of being up and being down and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. I've been seeing a therapist now consistently every week for the last 2-3 years now.
That's great, man.
Yeah, that's good.
Kudos to you, brother.
Cheers, and it's really opened my mind up to just how having that really deep understanding about yourself, your really deep understanding about how things such as your childhood affected you, how it affects how you react to things, affect how you cope with things. Once all that gets put in perspective, it then becomes so much easier to then deal with the people in your immediate surroundings who pull you down, because it's very hard to understand how to stay afloat when these external factors are putting stuff on you, when you don't even understand how you're staying afloat with your own baggage, if that makes sense. And it's one of those things I always tell my friends now, especially all my male friends, especially, even if you don't feel like it's worth doing, even if you don't feel like you have anything to say, one of the best things you can do is get a therapist. And I say this straight up to my therapist as well. I said it the other month, right now I feel like I'm wasting my time talking to you. I don't feel like I have anything else to say anymore. I feel like we've unpicked everything there is to unpick, because it's a private therapist as well, and it's not cheap. It's sad, but and she talks to me about that. It's but even then, my therapist finds a way to just pick how I'm feeling presently and turn that into something. And I'm learning lessons constantly every week from our conversations, even if there's very little to say and I come away from that session there and then feeling like nothing's happened. you know, but I can go off on a tangent here because I really feel like therapy is underutilized, under-talked about, not accessible enough for people. Because here in the UK, you know, we've got the NHS, which is like free healthcare. But even then, you know, sometimes you don't get paired with a therapist that's the correct therapist for you. Because one thing that's not talked about as well, like different therapists specialize in different techniques and different outlooks on life. And it's about finding that person who's suited to you. You know, so that as well is a whole struggle in itself, you know, and I've been doing a lot of research as well because, you know, there is a pandemic of people committing suicide. And in terms of the successful suicide attempts, it's mostly guys. And I looked into things, and it might seem very hard to believe, but I know it's the case in Western countries, but most men who commit suicide actually reached out for help in the days, weeks, months prior to them actually committing suicide. I think something over 50% of men looked for help in their immediate circles. A little less than that seeked help from professionals, you know, but they're still taking their own lives. You know, and I spoke to my therapist about this, you know, and I was just like, and, you know, she agreed with me. And one thing that, you know, her and I were able to establish is that, you know, throughout all this time, you know, over the years and so on, the idea of men struggling mentally as well has been really pushed down. Like, you know, guys are told to man up, deal with it. So that's already that disconnection to ourselves about how, you know, our mental health and stuff like that. And that then through studying, I see it's reflected as well in therapy techniques. And there's a lack of understanding in the, you know, professional mental health field about how to actually reach these men properly.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not to downplay as well, you know, the women who also seek help from therapists and so on, you know, because there are women who take their lives also. You know, but when the majority of suicides are men, I feel like a lot more should be done and can be done to really make sure that the help, when they do get it, is successful, you know, and making sure the help is there. And yeah, and it's one of those things where, you know, to everyone here, to everyone listening, if you can afford to do it and can make it happen, like literally go to speak to a therapist. And that's one thing as well that really helped me. So I can't talk to I feel like I can't talk to my friends and so on, stuff like that. But in my head, I can rationalize, like, this person in front of me is literally, their purpose is to hear me speak and to listen to me. And knowing, like, that's their purpose, it's like, okay, this is a space where I can just say what's on my mind, you know. And again, I see a private therapist, I've been able to pick that person for me, and pick someone I've been able to have to build that, you know, trust and relationship with. But yes, you know, so even with you, Jon, like, you know, take everything that I say, you know, how you want to take it and everything. But I'd recommend to you, like,
I agree with you completely. My whole childhood was therapy. So
yeah,
I had therapy from the age of 5 till the age of maybe 14. And then I went back when I was in 18 because I had suicidal thoughts in university. So I went back again. So I know that whole route, and I'm all for it. The therapists show you the light, right? They show you a better understanding of yourself. You know, I can't comment for everybody, but I grew up dwelling on all the shit I went through, and it made me a very hateful, angry person, and I still have angers. But what I'm going to say is all those therapy sessions did help me and made me understand why everything's a reaction to an action. That's what it is, right? And depression is that too. It's a reaction. That's how I sometimes look at it. You're depressed because there's the chemical imbalance, but sometimes I don't think it's just the chemical imbalance. It's more than that. It's just we all have different lives we've gone through. We all have different outcomes. And just the way we act and do things is a reaction to that, right? So I guess to sum it all up, because we could go on, but like I'm all for therapy, all for it, because we all need to discover ourselves. We can't do it alone. Honestly, mental health can't be done by itself. And like the UK, we have in Canada, we have I personally feel we have a great system, because when I was a child, it was private. Like my mother was able to afford it. But as I was older, I had to go through the public system, and I still felt the public system helped me. You go to the doctor, you say you got a problem, they'll put you in the system, and they suited me up with a therapist, right? And then that was it. You know what I mean? So.
I mean, you're lucky, John, because on my side, each time I tried therapy, I got someone who was trying to find someone guilty around me for what I was feeling.
Well, maybe, yeah. Well,
I don't think it's the way to feel better, to heal.
No, it's finding. I will agree with what Ollie said. Is you got to be lined up with the right therapist too. Yeah. I was lucky enough where I felt I was lined up with the right therapist. That it was actually because the one I saw in my 20s was somebody who was like a bit fresh out of university, right, with their doctorate and stuff. So there wasn't that big age gap, and they could relate and understand it more. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you have to be lined up, but I'm all for going again. Like I still contemplate about going back and sitting there and doing it, right?
Yeah.
Can I just say?
I wanted to ask you, Chris.
I want to applaud Oliver and John, like for saying that, for talking about that and everything, and to address what Dany was saying as well. We've all been to maybe like a medical doctor or something like that who was just didn't know what they were doing. And I was like, man, I got this stomach thing. They're like, oh, it's just this, take this and you'll feel better. And then you go out and you find out, oh no, you got like a tumor or something like that. And they were completely off base. I think therapy could be very much the same way.
Take that pill and you'll feel better.
Yeah. It's a thing where you've got to find the right thing. Something I'm a big advocate for. Something that's called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Yeah, it's not a take the pill until then, and that is not invalid, by the way, because if your brain chemistry is off, you will need help getting that chemistry corrected. But for many people, this may be, as John was saying, this may be not just a chemical imbalance, and I'll tell you, like I'm kind of a product of both of them, where I've had chemical imbalances since I was in the 4th grade, but I had all sorts of just horrible things happen. Like in 2001, my dear friend killed herself in front of me, and I should have gotten help. I didn't talk about it. Mm-hmm. I refused. I wouldn't say her name, not for years. I wouldn't get help. I wouldn't. So sorry. I did nothing. I just said, and it, largely a product of some of the people I knew, and I wanted to be seen as strong. I wanted to be seen as this, that, and the other thing. And I was angry at her, and I was more angry at myself. I wasn't ready to even face the fact that, like, did I not see a sign? Did I not do enough? Did I not see it coming? Is this my fault because I did not save my friend? And I wasn't ready to face that. And so I avoided all that stuff. And I'm now at the point where like I can recognize this stuff. I've been able to talk to people and all that stuff. I wrote an entire album for her and about this stuff and tried to express that. But in studying this stuff and now like, dedicating a lot of my life to this kind of this area of things, I will tell you, like, If you go more than a decade and you've got legit like major depressive disorder, one of these disorders in that brain, you go over 10 years and it's untreated and it is severe, it will change the gray matter of your brain. We can see it on fMRIs. I have brain damage. I'm always going to have brain damage. I'm never going to be the guy I was. No matter what, they can give me any fucking pill they want. It'll never happen because I didn't deal with it. And I'm permanently kind of messed up. And so I have to constantly find coping mechanisms because I had the unfortunate, bilateral smack of trauma and bad genetics, bad chemistry. And then I didn't do anything about it. And it changed my brain. And it was a disturbing thing to look at an fMRI and say, this is what it's supposed to look like. This is what you look like. Okay, what do we do? Well, this right here, there's not much you should have come to us 10 years ago.
Yeah.
This is just how it is now. So, one reason I'm a big advocate for this and and try to talk to people about this and passionate about this and everything is, I can't bring Eve back. She's gone. I can't bring Adam back. I can't bring up any of the people that I've lost. They're gone. And for many of these folks, as Aldo was just even referencing, I know the U.S. statistics because I'm volunteer and trainer for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So apologies if the numbers are skewed towards my country, but 69% of suicides are men. You are correct in that it's about like 48% said something to somebody. But many times we don't know how to deal with that. We don't know what to say to that. You know why? Because we don't have these conversations. So when it happens, if you don't know, and again, it's that describing red to the blind person. If you don't know how to handle this, and someone were to say, you know what, man, I don't think I want to wake up tomorrow. Someone might be so freaked out by that or not know, and I don't blame them. I want to make it clear I don't blame them because, again, that's a heavy thing. And if you've never had that contemplation, you don't know to say, hey, look, I understand. I've been there. And that's okay. And you know what? Here's the crazy thing. You don't see it right now, but there might be a day after today. Maybe we can get through today and let's see what happens tomorrow. But if that just freaks you out and you kind of say, man, I don't know what to do with that. If you confess that to the wrong person, that makes you feel completely ashamed that you should, you may permanently close that door and say, okay, yeah, I ain't talking to anybody. That's done. I'm not talking to anybody. And this is why we have to have these conversations. This is why we have to stop making the stigma. Like on my social media, I make all my stuff public, and when I have panic attacks, I document it, and I say all this stuff. And I've had people who've been like, "Why am I public about this stuff?" You know what? It's embarrassing as shit, but I do it because we have to get to the point where, you know what? If I had a cold, I could say I had a cold. If I had the flu, I could say I had the flu. If I had a headache, I could say I had a headache. But if I have a panic attack, don't tell anybody about that because you're crazy.
Yeah.
Or if I feel if I'm having a depressive episode, if I don't know if I want to live, oh man, don't tell anybody about that. You better back off. Don't say that. And that's the discrepancy to me. But if this is something that could physically change the gray matter of your brain, and this, I mean, if people want journal, like you can just look that up. Does it change the gray matter of your brain? But if people need journals, we can pull up the medical journals. But if that's the case, if it has a physical ramification, can we get to the point where we can admit that maybe, just maybe, it isn't in everybody's head? And maybe there's more to this. Maybe we do need to talk to somebody. And that's why going to a therapist, somebody is not going to judge you, where you can say that stuff and they will listen. That's why it's so important, because maybe you're not lucky enough to have somebody around you that'll say, I get it. But that's exactly why I'm so glad and so thankful to you guys for even saying, like, talk to people or seek help or this, that, and the other thing, because the alternative, I've watched what happens with the alternative.
Yeah.
So
thank you, Chris. Obviously we could talk forever, and I would like to keep this going. If you guys would like to keep going, we are at the top of the hour, but I'm all for going. If you guys want to keep going, does anybody else want to? Can you stay around for a little bit more?
Yeah.
Okay, because I mean, I think this is mind blowing. So I wanted to say this. I'm going to kind of toot my own horn for a second, but there's a point behind this, okay? So bear with me. I do a lot of interviews, and I suck at them, okay? I do. I think I'm awful at them. I really, truly believe that. But here's the thing. What I've found especially over the last year in meeting a couple of you specifically to talk about your bands, right? Oliver, John, Vidi, Nathan, and then of course, Dany's band. I've had these experiences that have connected us in a way I wasn't expecting at all. And what Chris said a second ago, I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep myself composed. But Chris brought up his friend dying in front of him. And that brought up suicides in my life, people I know, people I'm close to, the losses of family members, best friends blowing their heads off. The thing that I found that has worked, and this is not a medical thing, so Chris, please, don't judge what I'm about to say, but I have found that light overcomes darkness. It just does. If you're in a dark room, if you're sitting in a closet, it's a dark room. If you put a blinder over your face, it's a dark room. But if you turn that light on, there's detail. You can start to see things. And when we're caught up inside of these dark, depressive moments, it's really easy to be lost in thinking something's occurring that isn't. And the thing that I found, don't laugh, but the thing that I found, it's love. It's so rare. It's so rare, especially, Oliver had mentioned this a little while ago with men. Men don't say to men, I love you. They imply it. My father, right before he died, he actually didn't say, I love you before he died. He just hugged me. I felt it. He communicated it to me telepathically. But that is key, right? To share love. And I think it's crucial to remind each of you that I genuinely love you. I admire you. And I think we absolutely, regardless of what's going on in our brains, I applaud you guys for sitting in front of a therapist or having a conversation with somebody who understands what you're going through. But really, truly seeking out people that 100% have no ulterior motives and have your back. They aren't false platitudes, or what's good for a moment, but they're telling you the truth because you're in front of them because of who you are and the value of you are. You know what I mean? I mean. So I honor each of you guys today because I know you've been created for a reason, and part of your purpose is being here today, and your value is infinite. And so I mean, I love you guys so much, and so I wanted to say this to Nathan because he's the only one we haven't had a chance to talk with yet today. Nathan, dude, I love you, buddy. I don't know what it is. I don't know how we connected the way we did. I hope you're not frozen there. It looks like you're lost, hidden in your car. But you mean the world to me, and I just want you guys to know this. So I'm sorry for going off on a tangent, but I had to say this because. I love you guys, and I want you in my world because I trust you.
Yeah, but it's all true. It's all true. Like applause. Like it's true. Men need to express more love. I will give you a personal story. When my friend, it's similar to Chris, but my friend didn't commit suicide in front of me, but it was a close friend. It was a very close friend. And what happened was they killed themselves in a shed with a gun, and it caught us all. And you got to understand, this was it was the childhood friend. We've all been friends since we were 6 years old, and now we're all 20-something years old, and then they just died. they killed themselves without warning. Nobody saw it. And what had happened was, through the grieving process, we actually, it was a weird moment in my life where even though we were all close, we became closer and told each other how much we loved each other as men. You know, like, you know what I mean? Like, I love you, bro. Like, you know, it sucks that so-and-so's death happened, but man, let's be closer, because you know what I mean? I don't know if anybody else understands, but it was like, it was a moment that just brought us closer, even though it was death. Death brought us closer, and we felt that we needed to love each other more, so this wouldn't happen again. You know, we also felt guilt, you know, and we didn't want to let this go under our radar again, ever. You know what I mean? So, I guess to sum it up, yeah, love, telling everybody you love them and being more expressive with your feelings is key. It really is. Bottling it up, I'll still say I'm guilty of bottling it up, but when I let it out, it feels good, you know? It does.
You just saying that right now, Jon, your demeanor completely changed, because half an hour ago when you spoke, you were pissed off. You were carrying so much weight.
I have anger. I'll be honest, I go in periods where I have a lot of, I still grow up with anger issues from my past.
Sure.
And then I let the present relate into those too. Because when you're talking, we're all music industry, so there's music industry mental health, in my opinion, is the stress of the music industry. But there's a secondary to the way I behave, and that's also from the past, the experiences. And I guess you could just say that it all intertwines, whether we're all in the music industry and our personal lives, everything but everything has a hidden influence. That's what I've always said. And they all just mesh together for whatever happens.
Yeah. Nathan, can you hear me, buddy?
Yeah, man, I can hear you. I keep getting connection problems, so I don't know whether my screen keeps going off or not, but everything stops, and I'm like...
It does. Of course, I was telling you this big, sexy thing, and you totally went away, and everybody laughed.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
How are you doing, brother? Thank you for being here today. Tell us what's going on in your world.
So, first of all, thank you for having me. When I got the invite, there's no way I was saying no. It's a little bit different to what everyone else has mentioned. I mean, I find myself, I'm quite lucky to be in a good position, sort of currently. And I mean, even growing up, like I think Ollie touched on, you know, you get picked on in school. I'm a big lad. I'm still a big lad now, but obviously being a big lad at school, you don't sort of get the best of friends as such. Everyone kind of looks at you as a bit of an outcast. So I spent most of my time sat in music. There was a couple of stories in school. I got a cymbal thrown at me once by a kid because obviously I was quite a big lad, and sort of through that, I think there's more of a point I never felt accepted. Again, I was fortunate enough to have a good upbringing. Like I'd never turn around and say I had a bad upbringing, because what they did was fucking incredible. I know a lot of people aren't as lucky as that, and you know I do understand that. But at a very young age, I think I found a way in drugs, which I kind of found a way in drugs because this group who were doing drugs accepted me into it, which was a big part, because at that age, I never felt like I was accepted into anything. So being accepted into this group, you go with it because it's the first time you have been accepted, which you lose a lot of people sort of close to you. And there was a lot of people who said to me, what you're doing is wrong, and you don't listen, which is a big thing. I don't know if you guys have ever sort of had an experience with drugs, but you really do not listen to what people are saying. And you know, as much as these guys, I wouldn't say peer pressure, offered me, you know, these substances, I've got to take it on me to say that I did it, and I pushed away the people that I really shouldn't have pushed away. So been involved in this group for a hell of a long time. I found it through when you were playing shows as well. you get such an adrenaline rush at the show that all you want to do once you've finished it is carry on. So suddenly you're playing a show, next thing you know, you've got a bag of fucking cocaine that you bought, and you want to go through it and you don't want to stop. It got to a point where I was taking out loans because once I got my wage from my job, I'd spent it within a week. I'd take out a quick loan of £200 here and £200 there, and then it was trying to open an overdraft. And next thing I know, at 18 years old, I've got £500 worth of loan I've got to pay back. I've got a £1,000 overdraft that I've got to pay back. I've got a job which is paying very, very well, which I'm losing because I'm not turning up. Because all I want to do is fucking smash drugs in and be in this group that I'm accepted in. And suddenly you're blinded because, again, I go back to it, I'm being accepted, which was massive. If you've never felt it and suddenly you're feeling it, you don't want to lose it. I think at that point, it was, getting to a point where I wouldn't turn into work, and, you constantly sort of calling sick just to go do whatever the fuck you want. And it's these people that are doing exactly the same thing that you get dragged into it. And I felt very fortunate with the partner that I've got now. I never obviously spoke to a therapist because being told what I was doing was wrong was not the idea in my head that I wanted to go with. Or if anything, it just made you very, very angry. And once I got with the partner that I had now, she was a bit of a fucking saving grace, if I'm honest, because it got to the point where I realised that I wouldn't want to lose her. For how she's influenced my life as she's come into it, losing her would probably be the worst decision that I possibly did. And she understood what I was doing, and she knew what I was doing, and she played a big part in helping me stop it as such. When you're on it, like, you don't realise the impact it's having sort of when you're doing it, and then when you look back, you realise I was constantly angry when I went on it. You push people away, you're angry constantly, you don't feel up to anything, and it sounds bad, but I can't remember like possibly 2-3 years of my life. Like, you think back, someone says, do you remember this? And you're like, well, to be honest, man, I can't fucking remember anything. I'm spending my time sat on a sofa getting wasted and off my face. But I know a lot of people have been through it, and a lot of people aren't as fortunate as I feel to come out the other end, been in quite a good place. But I think the closest I've come to really feeling like that recently was both my parents have been ill with a very, very similar thing, and one was hospitalised and then my dad was hospitalised. They kind of happened at the same time. And touching the thing, you don't want to speak to anyone about it. And it puts you in such a dark place that, again, you get into the mindset, you don't want to do anything. As much as possibly you should reach out, you don't want to, because you feel like you're going to be a burden on someone. I think you're scared of the reaction that you're going to get. Props to you guys for speaking to a therapist, because it's a very, very ballsy move, and not a lot of people, would be able to do it. So the fact that you've done that is just incredible, like serious props. But yeah, I've always found it hard to speak to someone because, like you say, you're scared of the reaction, you're scared of what someone else is going to feel. And I think another big thing as well, so within my job, I've got a customer, I said I'd speak about his story today. He lost his daughter very, very recently to mental health, and she took her own life, which I saw how it impacted him, and it was not in a good way at all. And he's got about this big thing where he wants to get rid of the word mental, which I think is huge, because when we talk about mental health, especially in today's age, like you were saying, you've got sort of the older family members who say, scrape it off, get on with it, and then you've got sort of the newer age. When you say the word mental, for a lot of people will think you're crazy, and it's not the case. Or you say, I've got a mental health problem, to certain people, they're going to think you're a fucking wacko, when you're not at all. And it has such a stigma against the word mental. And if it's not going to be possible, if we could change that word to something else and describe sort of that as something else, it just, I won't say make it easier, but it'd be on the right path, I think. I ended up going on a complete other tyrant there. I've never really spoke about it properly in front of people, so it's kind of like I was going to do it in order to speak about it, but then you get faster and faster, and suddenly you're like, oh fuck.
No, it's amazing, Nathan. Thank you for sharing that. That's incredible, and as we've done before, kudos to you for talking about it out loud. I mean, and I love the fact that what you said about the word mental, because the word is stigma. What do they say, right? What are you, mental? Right? Yeah. It's like using the word retarded. It might be a clinical term, but it's been used so incorrectly for so long that now it's become a word we shouldn't be saying.
Yeah. And even though, like you say, it's right, the stigma against it, so many people will see it as mental, being crazy, and that's not the fact. That's not right. And I don't really know what else to say about it, but I do agree with him in the fact we do need to change it, or change the stigma at least somehow.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I have a thought that I wanted to share with you guys, and I'd love your takeaways on this. It's another cheesy idea, similar to the love thing I said a little while ago. But you guys don't know this, but a couple of weeks ago, something very simple happened in my life. My cat died, and it died on Christmas Day. We were actually at my mother's house, and we came home, and our cat was lying dead on the floor. And it devastated, of course, my children and my wife, and it made the day pretty awful. And then that led into a series of events, dumb little things like, they are first world problems, right? Your washing machine stops working correctly. My microwave stopped working. My car got broken into. All these things started to happen. And I was really getting caught up in just negativity, not depression, not even sadness, just anger and frustration. But they kept snowballing and building up until last week. And I knew this was coming up today. And so last week I went to this forum in a small town next to me, and the man was speaking, and he said something that I actually wrote down and I wanted to share with you today. This isn't an answer, but this is an idea, and I applied it, and it's worked for me. So he said this. He said, let's say your pain is a 10 on a scale. Now imagine in the next hour or the next day, you have a moment where you realize your pain maybe isn't a 10 anymore. Maybe it's a 9.5. Sure, it's not really much better, but it's crucial to acknowledge that incremental change towards the positive absolutely helps your brain. It's a reminder to yourself and your creator that you see and you believe and you enjoy that you were better off at this moment. Putting that foot in front of the other will offer very small but important encouragement to yourself, and you will start to believe, and that belief itself is massively important. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I'll tell you, I came home and I thought, am I grateful? Am I really grateful? I have a good life. I know a ton of people. I've played on big stages. I've done a lot of cool things in my life, and now I'm sitting here talking to you amazing guys. And right? I mean, am I grateful for any of this? Or am I just waiting for the big panacea, right? The big fix. Do I need the big fix to be okay with this moment? And so my point is, as cheesy as it might be, maybe just telling yourself to notice the tiny improvement and to just say, thanks God, that's cool. Right? Like, or, look, you may not believe in God. I understand. I do. Thanks God. That's cool. I feel good about this moment, and I'm going to appreciate this, and let's see if it improves. And I found that it has. What's your thoughts? Anybody want to jump on that?
Well, yeah. Go. Go on, Dany, you go first. I'll jump in after.
I'd say that for me, the best way for me to go through every day is to realize what I have, as you said, Rob, because I always love to say to everybody who's not feeling good is that there won't be always, it won't be a shitty day every day. you need to realize what you have. You need to see what you have, because in how can I say it? In French, it sounds good, but in English, it might sound weird. I mean, in every shit, if you look into it deeply, you'll find something beautiful. I mean, it's crazy to say, but I really think it's true, because, okay, it's awkward, but you need to put your brain forward and try to find something in it. I mean, you can see a pile of shit and just say that's shit. But if you're crazy, if you have a crazy mind and trying to find something funny in it, you say, well, in that pile of shit, this thing looks funny. This thing have a funny form. I mean, it's look, and what it's a pile of shit finally will make you smile.
It's making me smile right now.
I don't know how can I can explain it better, but I mean, it's true. In every shit, if you look it deeply, you'll find something good, something that will make you smile.
You can guarantee, Dany, that all of us are going to be looking in our shits next time we do it. 100%.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the T-shirt with that on the back. By the way, you put the T-shirt out, I'll make sure I pick one up.
I mean, just to kind of like add on from that point, it's not what I was going to say initially, Dany, but thank you. I mean, I love the literal translation from French. I'm sure it sounds beautiful in French. Most things do. I've got a dog, right? I've got a puppy. He's 3 months old, and he eats his own shit. Right, and I'm like, why you do that? It's disgusting, your breast stinks, no one needs that. Apparently it's because there's still nutrients in it, and that's kind of like what my brain was going to with that. It's like, yeah, it's shit, but actually there's still some good in it, you know, like
you see
awful, but you know, but
scientific tracking for it now.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of wanted to circle back to what you said, Rob, about, you know, being grateful for things and like recognizing things, and I think it is really important to recognize, like, in ourselves, like the incremental steps you take, the little bits of progress you make. Like, yeah, you might feel 5% less awful than you did the day before, but that's still 5%. Even if it's 1%, it's still 1%. And to congratulate yourself or reward yourself for that is really, really important. And not just like recognizing the good things, but recognizing the bad as well. Recognizing or trying to recognize why you feel that way. I've got a really good friend of mine. Like he's a rape and sexual assault survivor. He's an abuse survivor. He's been through a huge amount of things in his life. And he says to me quite regularly, he's like, we are but products of our own and other people's traumas. Like, we are only the way we are now because of the things we've experienced, and by extension, the things that the people who have imprinted onto us, they have experienced before us. And by recognizing that, by understanding that, by not victimizing, and actually I think Dany, you said about how when you were kind of paired up with a therapist in your part of Canada, they were trying to find someone to blame for the way you felt. And actually that all that does is serve to kind of instill more hate and more resentment and more anger and more animosity in us, which doesn't help you on your healing journey. Like, if you're trying to get to somewhere better by just blaming someone or you know, I mean, one of the most powerful things we can do as people is forgive. Right? You know, it's important to be able to forgive people. Whether you forgive that person that treated you in a bad way, or you forgive that friend that you held animosity towards because they left before you wanted them to. You forgive yourself for the things that you've done or your own misgivings. Those small steps, those small things that you can recognize as, like, I call them little wins, right? Yeah, you might not be able to win the war, but today you won the battle. You won that little thing. And recognizing that, congratulating yourself for that, that's really, really important. I think that's a great part of a healing journey.
Yeah. Man, Jon, that's awesome. You know, it's interesting too, because as you were saying that, my mind, you know, the word agape poured into my mouth, into my mind. The idea of agape love, perfect, unjudging, holy love. And I'm not, you know, I don't want to go down a big spiritual tangent at the moment. Just this is not necessarily the appropriate place to do it. But like JR, I'm a Christian. And I make a ton of mistakes. I would never lay that on anybody. I don't believe that it's It's going to serve anybody well by being a certain thing outside of my demonstration, my best demonstration of love. But yeah, having that agape love, having that unjudgmental love, if it's possible to express that to others, is crucial, right? Because it's powerful. It overcomes everything. And again, like I said, it's not me trying to impress my own personal beliefs on any of you guys here today, but it is to say that, to go back to that word, that love, that not unrequited, that's the wrong way, that's the wrong direction, but that non-judgmental perfect love is everything. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. But I love you guys. I love you guys so much. I love everything that's happened today. I love that Nathan shared this story that I didn't even see coming. I didn't know, Ollie, that, you know, you had gone through the bullying too. You know, when we had our conversation a number of months back, I knew your singer, you know, had written Quiet Kid about that, but I wasn't necessarily aware that it was part of your journey. And, you know, and I love to see Jon literally convert himself in front of us, you know, going from the pissed off, angry the media mogul to the sweet natured, right, generous soul that we know and love. Any final thoughts here? I mean, we really should probably hang it up, but I do want to get back to this. I mean, I would love to, man. I mean, if we could do this once a month, guys, that would be incredible. And going bigger, right? But Chris, let me maybe save me, brother.
Is it possible for me to ask you a question, guys?
Oh,
everybody,
please, yeah, please, I mean, Dany, go.
We all spoke about therapy. We all we spoke about love. We all spoke about the fact that some people close to us tried to or did commit suicide, and we always, I think we all said that. Correct me, guys, if I'm wrong, but we all said that we need to ask help or give help to people that we love. But what if? I might speak for myself a bit in that question, but I'm the one that, if you ask people around me, I'm the one who's telling everybody that I love them. Even it's my dad, my friends, or else my family, brothers. And if we do this, trying to make people smile all around us, we try the therapy, and we try to help everybody. I mean, I also have someone close to me who tried to commit suicide. I even wrote a song about it on our first album, which is hard for me to speak of. And how can we ask help around us if we are the one helping everybody around us? You
have to say the words. We are buckets of water, right? And I'm guilty of this as well. I know exactly what you're talking about. If we constantly are ladling out the water we have, that's the love and support, understanding the smiles, the jokes. If we keep ladling it out, at some point you will go and there'll be nothing in that bucket.
Yeah.
And so it is not a call necessarily to be selfish. It is a call to make sure that you are treating yourself the way you treat them. Mm-hmm. So in other words, that you are taking the time to express yourself. If you had a dear friend that was going through a difficult time or was struggling, we want them to tell us, and I will hear you. I will listen, and maybe I'll try to lift you up. Maybe I'll try to make you laugh, or I will just be here. I will listen to you, and that's all. You know, if that's all you need. But think about the weird dichotomy. We rarely treat ourselves that way. Mm-hmm. We don't treat ourselves the way we treat others in need.
No. And
there's a perception thing. It goes back to kind of what you and Jon were just talking about a second ago about, the love, the positivity, all that kind of stuff. Perception is reality. Mm-hmm. We live in our minds. Our minds are us. If you've ever been drunk or taken a hallucinogen, you know that reality can change just by the chemistry changing up here. And we could swear that that thing's moving or something like that. So what we feel, what we experience through our senses, that's reality, right? And so we have to bear that in mind. And when our reality starts to get malformed, we cannot be solely defined by we're the pillar. We hold others up. That's what we do. We can't only be that.
Yeah, well,
also have support beings.
I always said to people, if you're drowning, John, c'est quoi le mot pour se noyer? Drown?
Yeah, if you're drowning.
Yeah. If you're drowning, I'll lend you my hand. Take it. I'll try to get you out of the water. But if you're taking me with you underwater, I'll let you go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think another thing as well, like what you just said with how you can always hold your hand out to someone and give them the help, but you don't necessarily want to ask for help yourself. I know I'm speaking for me, but I think I'll speak for everyone on here, and that goes to everyone, is that everyone on this screen right now is always open to speaking to you.
Yeah.
You know, you can always drop one. If you don't feel like you can speak to anyone around you, you've met all of us today. You've probably met a couple before, but we're all here and we're only a message away.
Yeah.
And, you know, no matter what time of the day it is, no matter where we are, you know, we'll drop everything and we'll make sure you're okay. And that goes for everyone. You know, if anyone feels like they can't speak to anyone around them, what we've got today is something that we can really stand by and something that we should really, really use. And that if you need to speak to someone, speak to one of us. One of us is going to be available.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, you don't know, but everybody helped me this week. What happened in my life. I mean, when Rob told me about this podcast, the first thing I did is listening to every band, which you are all. And as I said at the beginning, music to me is what keep my head over the water and keep me breathing. And I need to thank you all, everybody, Rob, even you, for getting everybody in there. But what you do, same if I don't send you a private message to speak of, your music is already helping me, and I'm pretty sure it's already helping many other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I need to tell you all, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
That's being proactive, though. That goes back to your question of where can we get, where can we draw that strength from? This ties it back around to something that is tying all of us together. It's music.
Yeah.
You know, as John was highlighting some of the truly frustrating aspects of this industry, if it did not give us something deeper, we wouldn't continue beating our heads against its wall. And I think that's why it's a good thing. It's a helpful thing for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just one thing. There was a comment earlier that popped up. Someone had said, you know, I feel bad that I enjoy something that you guys are tortured by, you know, doing what we do, music and stuff. And I just wanted to say, like, I mean, we do this for a reason. If we didn't want to be here and do this, we wouldn't be. You know, like, we feel called to I mean, I speak for myself. I don't know if I can speak for everyone, but for the majority that I know that do music, it is not easy. And it's something that takes a lot of strength and a lot of perseverance. And so please don't feel guilty. Like, we love to do this. Like, this is something we love to do, because we could be at any kind of job and still go through the same things that we're going through.
Yeah, we're not doing it for money.
Exactly. Yeah. We get to do something that we love to do, that we are, like, so passionate about, and we can help people in the process, and we get to do something that we love to do, and we can express what we're dealing with.
The music is the therapy.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say, like, to someone the person that said that, like, please don't feel like you're, like, guilty by, like, enjoying, you know, something that we feel called to do and that we love to do, because we want to help, you know. So
I think following on from that, like, the best thing, anyone can take anything from a song. Just because there's a meaning behind a song doesn't mean that everyone's going to get the same meaning behind it. And I think that's why we should all feel so special, in the sense that we can reach out to people with it, and people are listening. because, like I say, what you hear in a song that we've wrote will be completely different to what you've heard, and it'll reach the people in many, many different ways that you wouldn't even think. And knowing that even if it just helps, even just one person who listens, is just more than what the one you could ever offer anyway.
Yeah. Well, this isn't a mental health thing, but I do want to say one thing to you guys before we shut down for today. We're going to do this again. We're definitely going to do this again, and obviously I'd love to have you all back. But let's build this together. You know what I mean? Something that a fellow shared with me a number of years ago that I thought was really important, and it touched my life and it changed my life, was just a concept. And it was the following. He said, you know, when you're sitting at a red light and you're super frustrated because there's 12 cars in front of you and you're waiting to go, and the light turns green and the first guy goes, but he goes too slow and you don't get through the light, and now you're stuck still, right? A whole cycle, and you're like, you're just like losing your mind, right? But there's a real good chance that if you had gone through that light, you would have been in a car accident or once you went around the corner, right? It isn't about gratefulness, but it is about understanding that your life, everything in it, and he said this, he used these words, he said, think of your life as perfect. Everything that happens to you is perfect. You may not understand why it has happened. You may not understand where it fits in the big purpose of life, but everything is perfect. And so I want to encourage you guys to love and to accept the moments and to find the joy, even if it's tiny, tiny increments, and to just be grateful for everything that's in front of you, because I am so grateful for this experience today. This isn't just a game changer in the business, but this is a game changer for me, a game changer for you. This is a chance for us to do something extraordinary. And all of us have been impacted by each other today. And if it was just us 9, holy crap, this is freaking badass, right? Isn't this badass? This is badass. I'm going to lose my mind. This is badass. So
everything happened for a reason, I guess.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Dany, John, Ollie, Vidi, Nathan, JR, Matt, Flood, wherever you are, brother. Sorry you couldn't make it today. He got sick, guys. He was supposed to join us, but sometimes it happens. So let's do this again soon. Chris, I do want to give you kind of an extra special thanks because you gave me a lot of insight in how to take this today and how to push this forward. So thank you so much for your extra effort in that. Thank you for introducing each other to each other. Guys, this is a chance to form relationships and to collaborate. The things that we can do just with this panel and the lives we can change is extraordinary. So I guess if I could just say the last thing is, please, people, whoever's listening to this, surround yourself with people that you love, that you admire, that you know will speak truth to you and that you'll receive positive input from. And know that those difficulties, they're worth going through, they're worth walking through so you can get to that other side and you can start affecting life, because our life and our purpose is about people. It's not about us, it's about others. So thank you for everything you guys do. And I'm blown away, and I want to make sure I include these comments before we go because these people are really paying attention. But thank you guys. I love you to death, and let's do it again, okay?
Can I offer a parting thought real quick?
Yeah, please, Chris.
So for all of you guys, I just want to say I'm humbled and honored to have been able to speak with all of you. And I admire and respect and love everything you guys are doing. And I wanted to just offer a thought from Henry Rollins for us, and for anybody that will be listening. I took a lot of solace from him after Eve died. And something he said was, I'm going to tell you something. and this is for all you guys, it's for anybody that sees this, either whether they're watching now or to go home. I love your life. I love your life because you've got one. And I've seen the alternative and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, for somebody like me, we have to kind of go with the fact that we get to live tomorrow. That's the only break we're going to get. We get to move on. We get to go forward. We get to take one more step. And it doesn't seem like much, but when, you know, for the people that suffer, that's a lot. And I recommend to people that come to me for help or counseling, I try to recommend to them, they've got to, you know, find places for those little victories. If you cannot get out of bed, getting out of bed today and just taking a shower, that's huge. That's a victory. That's climbing Everest. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You don't have to accomplish all these things. You just need to pick a victory, pick a thing, and just do that one little thing and give yourself that one little victory. Because statistically, none of us should exist. We're an anomaly in the universe. So every one of us won the lottery just by being here. And you know what? We don't even get guaranteed that we're all going to wake up tomorrow. And if we do, that's the break we get. That's as good as it gets, but that's huge at the same time. So I come at it, obviously, Rob, from a different perspective than you. You know,
of course,
not so much the spiritual side, you know, but that's something that has actually kept me on this planet.
Yes,
is that idea of that. So I just wanted to tell all of you guys, and Rob especially, thank you for inviting me. And I love all of your lives, and I love you. So
you're a very cool dude, man.
Likewise.
You're a very cool dude. Thank you.
Really, Chris, I could listen to you like for hours.
Yeah.
Seriously, man.
Absolutely. You got like the greatest voice too. Holy
and
cow.
You said you can enjoy joy, and I see you smiling, and I know you still have those things inside of you.
That's what I fight for. Is I have it's like I have this little flame left. Maybe it was an inferno once, and now I've got that little flame. So I fight for that little matchstick for everything I got.
Let me.
It's a very bright light.
Yeah, let me spill some oil on it, please.
There's another T-shirt design.
All right, guys. Look, thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Thank you for being a part of it. Thank you, everybody, for following these streams and listening. And please subscribe so you can enjoy the future, because what's coming is going to be extraordinary. Thank you, guys. Blessing you all.
Anytime.
Thank you, Rob. We love you.